Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Operations Management Budget and Government Accountability Department budget hearing of April 17th, 2023, to order. With me this evening, to my right, I have Majority Leader TJ Clark, who will be with us in short minutes, Assistant Majority Leader Councilwoman Marilyn Rossetti, Councilman Nick LeBron, Councilman Amilcar Hernandez, Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon. To my left, I have Councilman John Gale, and on the screen, we have Councilwoman Tiana Hercules. It's nice to see you all here this evening. Director Baldwin, I am going to hand over the floor to you so that you can introduce your team, and then let's get this started. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. So nice to see everyone. Good evening to all of the members of the City Council. We are very pleased to be here. As stated, my name is Christina Baldwin. I'm the Director of the Department of Families, Children, Youth, and Recreation. I am joined here tonight with me on my left, our Assistant Director for Early Learning, Shailene Lopez. To my right, our Assistant Director for Recreation, Troy Stewart. And to my far right, our budget analyst is here with us as well, Corey Mills. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge many of our DFCYR staff that have come to join us as well here in the audience. So with that being said, we are pleased to present to you our FY 2024 recommended budget for the Department of Families, Children, Youth, and Recreation.
Director, sorry to interrupt you. Would it be possible if they could just say who they are, just to familiarize myself with them?
Absolutely.
And what department?
Yes. Do you want to start, Arnaldo?
Good afternoon. My name is Arnaldo Perez, Principal Administrative Analyst, Youth Services. Marlon Jackson, Department of Family, Children, Youth, and Recreation. Troy McCoy, Recreational Counselor. Mohammed Hamilton, Recreation Counselor.
Thank you all. Thank you. And with that, we can go ahead and start with the presentation. So our mission at the Department of Families, Children, Youth, and Recreation is to ensure the well-being and success of all Hartford families. The department works toward that goal by promoting and providing high-quality early childhood education, youth development, workforce development, recreation, and other related programs. Getting and keeping young people on safe and productive paths is a core part of the city's mission. Our current organizational chart looks as follows. We are headed by an administration team, and these positions that you see here are our general fund positions. So listed under the administration team, funded under the general funds, is 1 director, 1 assistant director, 1 executive assistant, and 1 management service officer. In the early learning division, we have 1 assistant director that's supported through the general funds. In the youth services division, we have 1 administrative analyst, 1 assistant director, 1 general clerk, and 1 senior administrative assistant. And under recreation and family services, we have 1 assistant director, 4 community recreation counselors. In total, we have 14 general fund positions. We have an additional 36 grant-funded positions, and these are full-time budgeted positions for a total of 50 in our department. So our department structure. DFCYR is comprised of 3 divisions, as I mentioned already: early learning, youth services, and recreation and family services. They are intertwined and interdependent on one another to holistically serve the individual through a lifelong approach, from birth to seniors. The department is also designed to underscore the importance of supporting the entire family unit in order to best serve the needs of all children and youth in their development. DFCYR's 3 divisions support, complement, and complete one another programmatically, philosophically, and financially through a symbiotic relationship. This all-encompassing design allows the entire department to effectively serve our community through a comprehensive and progressive approach. The following are some highlights as of this current fiscal year, FY 2023, at time of submission. 110,607 meals have been served to children through our Early Learning Center. 1,538 toddlers and preschool slots that we have in our center-based classrooms. There are 96 toddler and preschool slots at 2 City of Hartford Early Learning Centers, Highland Park and Metzner Recreation Center. I believe that up there is a typo. That should say 2 centers, not 3. We have 65 center-based classrooms and family groups that participate in the Hartford Talks program, which is a family literacy program that is funded through the Bloomberg Initiative. We have had so far 40 coaching sessions with our family child care providers that participate in Hartford Talks. Additionally, we have 127 so far family child care providers in our staffed family child care network, and that is steadily growing due in part to a large grant that we recently received. We have 30 professional learning communities for administrators, instructional leaders focused on data-driven decision-making, business leadership, and pedagogical leadership. We have had 150 coaching visits for preschool educators throughout the city. And we have also provided, to date, over 960 infant and toddlers with diapers and formula through a partnership that we have with the Diaper Bank of Connecticut. This was a new pilot program that just started in February, so almost 1,000 infants and toddlers have been served in the past 2 months with diapers and formula. On our youth services division, we have had, at this point, it's even a little bit higher than this, but 1,595 disengaged and disconnected youth ages 16 to 24 have served as part of our Mayor's Hartford Youth Service Corps program, earning nearly $6 million since July of 2016. So this 5th-year cohort includes 201 youth that are working on 89 service learning projects throughout the city, working in collaboration with 15 community partners. We have had 798 youth served in the Summer Youth Employment and Learning Program last summer. We have 385 youth that have served in prevention, crisis intervention, and re-entry programs as part of our Youth Justice Initiative with grants to Compass Peace Builders and our Piece of the Pie. We have served 64 youth in our Juvenile Review Board as a means of diverting juvenile offenders from the formal justice system through a balanced and restorative justice approach. 65 youth have served as part of our Rapid Response, which is an immediate coordinated response by our Youth Violence Prevention and Intervention Work Group, which addresses the unmet needs of youth ages 12 to 24 who are involved in violence to reduce repeat offenders and retaliation. We have served a total of 305 since February of 2019. And we have currently served 28 truant or habitually truant students have been referred to us through the schools, and we have referred them out to community supports. There have been 196 of these since our truancy initiative began in 2018. On the recreation division, we have had 10,325 visits by children to the Kevin L. Bell Playground Program, so this doesn't include the children that also visit the splash pad. We have 2,010 families or individuals registered online with the MyRec system. We have 240 individuals that have visited outdoor pools, that's a daily average. 236 youth attended summer evening rec programs on a daily average. 185 individuals have attended block parties on average. 115 people have visited MyRec, that's a daily average. 80 children have attended our summer basketball camp, again, a daily average. 60 children participated in our summer camp program last summer, and 60 children participated in the basketball travel team. Additionally, 50 individuals have attended karaoke in the park, that's at Keeney Park, and that is on average. That event happens monthly in the summer. 20 youth have participated in our Leaders in Training program. 30 individuals participated in Zumba in the park. That's a weekly average. That program happens weekly. 30 individuals participated in Walk with a Doc. That is a monthly average. And 16 new lifeguards are currently being trained and certified through our recreation department. In addition, we've had 14 summer interns through the Youth Service Corps program that have worked with and learned from recreation staff serving the children and families. We also run a recreation center at Sand Elementary School in September and October, and we have evening rec in the summer only, both at Hartford Public High School and at Weaver High School. So in 2023, we were very fortunate to have been able to secure a good number of grants so far. That's one area that the team and I have stressed as an area of focus for our department. So we secured over $3 million from Connecticut Children's Medical Center for support of the North Hartford Ascend pipeline. We've scored nearly $1.4 million through the United States Department of Justice, and that is through the Edward Byrne Memorial Discretionary Grants Program. That grant supports a new partnership with the state of Connecticut to serve our highest risk youth, our highest needs youth, those that are repeat juvenile offenders. We have secured just over $17 million from the state of Connecticut Office of Early Childhood in order to provide school readiness and child daycare funding for our 18 providers throughout the city. We have secured $120,000 from to support our licensed daycare, our kith and kin providers, through an initiative called the Homegrown Initiative. And that supports our family, friends, relatives, and neighbors to provide in-home child care services. And $247,000, just over that, we've received from DCF for our Juvenile Review Board program. Additionally, we've secured $640,000 from the state of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development for the expansion of the Youth Service Corps program. We also secured over $319,000 from the United Way to expand out our staff family child care network into Region 2. Formerly, we would just be serving our Hartford municipality, but the state changed the structure this year in that they select one provider to serve an entire region, and we were selected as that provider. That allows us to expand our staff family child care network from where we currently are at about 70 to over 400. So we're very excited about that. And we have secured $27,800 to support a parent ambassador program to form a parent cabinet as part of our mayor's cabinet for young children. We have secured $153,609 from the Department of Children and Families for our Youth Service Bureau program, which supports our youth employment, youth justice, and our capacity building for our youth service providers. So also very proud to present some department highlights that we have been recognized for this year. So we were selected for the National Youth Employment Coalition's first ever Innovative Program Award for our Hartford Youth Service Corps program. We were just presented with that award in Indianapolis, Indiana. We were selected through a competitive process to serve the staff family child care network of Region 2, like I mentioned previously. So again, this includes the potential to increase our provider network from 70 to over 400. One of our staff members that's here in the audience, raise your hand, O'Hemming, has our community recreation counselor, was elected to the Connecticut Recreation and Parks Association Board of Directors. Congratulations, O'Hemming. And we have been awarded approximately $3.4 million in ARPA funds to serve 96 youth-serving providers through our Unity Grant program in FY22 and 23. And this is anticipated to increase in FY24. So the following chart reflects a very high-level overview of some of the core programs that are being offered by the top largest cities in the state of Connecticut as of 2023, which includes the city of Hartford. The program can vary seasonally and may change over time as programs are retired and new ones are added. So the following chart reflects just a moment in time for these agencies. So you can see Hartford being the first column that we offer all of the listed programs, which are considered core program assets, and how we look in comparison to the other top largest cities in the state of Connecticut. And these are all programs that are run through the department. The next slide shows the program offerings vary community to community, and they may change as the needs and interests of the residents shift. So the following chart defines specific recreation programs and the percent of agencies across the country that offered them in 2022, as compared to current offerings in the city of Hartford's DFCYR. Can continue, thank you. So some of our strategic initiatives, what do these look like? In early learning, our focus is to ensure holistic learning and development of children with multi-generation approaches and empowering parents and caregivers to advise, advocate, and lead solutions for their families, their peers, and the city with a focus on building and accelerating literacy. In youth services, our strategic initiatives include collaborating with system leaders and partners and provide and act as a thought and implementation and action partner to improve life course outcomes for Hartford youth with a focus on engagement, employment, and youth justice. In our Recreation and Family Services division, our strategic initiatives is to have an understanding of the importance of the family unit. Our Recreation and Family Services division promotes and expands exploration, skill building, and leadership opportunities throughout the city so that recreation is accessible to all residents with a focus on adolescents, children, girls, and teens. Next slide. Thank you. So you can see here our budget comparison from FY23 and what we have projected in FY24. So you can see on here some significant features. The recommended budget for FY24 is $4,999,654. This reflects an increase of $1,336,201, or 36.5% compared to the FY23 adopted budget. The net increase is due to additional funding for the purpose of extending citywide recreation center hours and services, as well as contractual wage adjustments for part-time recreational staff. Of the 36.5% increase in the budget, 36.1% of that is designated for the expansion of services throughout all of our recreation centers, which constitutes the largest single investment in our department's history. This pie chart shows how our money is allocated for the proposed budget, FY 2024. You can see that the largest piece now, with that $1.3 million increase, is under our Recreation and Family Services division. Oh, sorry, that's fine, thank you. So now I'd like to talk to you a bit about how this $1.3 million increase came about. We're very excited to share with you our newly redesigned family and community center model. So upon Mayor Bronin having a conversation with me, as you all know, I have been recently confirmed. Thank you, I appreciate that. And as such, I've really been afforded the opportunity to have sort of my thoughts and views and opinions on the department be welcome and asked. So the administration did ask me what I thought about a redesign of our recreation centers. So I was very excited to be asked that question because that's something that the team and I have been talking about for a couple of years now, probably at least 3 years since we've been hit by COVID. And since we've been hit by COVID, we haven't been able to fully utilize what I think have been all of the opportunities that our recreation department could envision. So with that, being said, we were asked to come up with a proposal. So the team that you see up here, including our amazing budget analysts, spent many, many days and hours coming up with a few different proposals, of which we sort of chose like our Cadillac version. If we could have everything that we wanted, how we envisioned our recreation department, what that would look like. And so we prepared a very in-depth proposal and we presented it to Mayor Bronin, which he was excited about, and he included that as part of our budget. So I want to take this opportunity to go through with you how we've envisioned the redesign of our recreation centers into our family and community centers. But I want to start out with an acknowledgement of the staff and all of the incredibly hard work that they've been doing over the past 3 years. I'm not sure if you all are aware or if the community is aware, but this incredible, primarily the recreation staff, although all staff has stepped up to the plate, really shifted focus during the past 3 years of COVID, right? So during the past 3 years, and by the way, 75% of our recreation staff are Hartford residents, 71% of our full department staff are Hartford residents. So these dedicated and tireless Hartford residents that are our recreation staff over the past 3 years, they shifted their focus during the COVID time to become the meal distribution site for any child, any youth that needed a meal. They distributed over 1 million meals during the pandemic. They also became a distribution site for PPE and masks, which they gave out to the community. Our Willie Ware Recreation Center was turned into a shelter for homeless residents that were COVID positive, which our recreation staff ran. So they had to be trained in that. They had to learn how to wear all of the protective gear and to deal with COVID positive homeless residents in our recreation staff. And they shifted to that seamlessly and without any complaint. We were also training locations and testing sites at our recreation centers for the police department and fire department. And we were provided emergency shelters, which we continue to do to this day. Our recreation centers act as emergency shelters when it is either too hot or too cold for residents to stay outside. And our staff support in staffing those recreation centers when they do turn into those emergency shelters. We actually had several staff here that spent their Thanksgiving holiday staffing those during the time of that emergency. So on top of all of that, our staff also provided services virtually when they could and in person as it was safe to do so. So they continued to provide all of the recreation programs in addition to all of the other items that I listed above that they had to shift to do during the time of COVID. So I'd really like to commend them on that. So now that we are coming out of this pandemic, it was a perfect opportunity for us to be able to reimagine what it was that we really want our recreation centers to look like. And the model that we came up with is this family and community center model. So the objective of this model, the purpose of it, is to incorporate a robust and comprehensive program serving the entire community from infants to seniors while maximizing the hours, days, and availability of all the recreation centers, all of them. The goals are as follows. Goal number 1, to increase the hours, days, and weeks of operational use to maximize all of the recreation center spaces. Goal number 2 is to create a diverse and robust array of engagement services and activities for all members of our community. And goal number 3 is to expand opportunities to serve the entire life cycle of Hartford residents, from infants to toddlers and everyone in between. The Family and Community Center model is held up by the following pillars you can see here: early learning drop-in care, senior and adult care, community-based programs, a family-centric approach, teens, youth, and City of Hartford staff. The following is a very high-level description overview of what the programs would consist of. So we'd have after-school programming. The recreation centers will be available for school-age children and youth after school on half-days and early dismissals, and it will be accommodated in alignment with the Hartford Public School System. City staff programming, in response to staff requests that we have received at our department, we would have specialized hours that are dedicated for recreation programming, for pool and weight room usage that are specifically dedicated to City of Hartford staff during select hours of the day. And that is our department's way of being able to help support our current workforce and also to be able to attract new talent as a means of giving them an additional city resource that they can have access to. Our family programming and drop-in care would provide a variety of family-centric activities to be offered during the evening hours. There would be drop-in childcare that would be available for parents that would be able to come in and engage in the programming during that time as well. So you as a parent, if you wanted to attend a program at our Family and Community Center in the evening, would also be able to bring your child, and we would have the drop-in atmosphere for your child to be able to be watched during that time as well. We are looking to build a robust multimedia center. So multimedia technology will have a designated space and will be available to the community throughout the operational hours. Specialized senior and adult programming to have expanded hours for our senior and adult programs based on needs and interests of our seniors and adults. We would also allow for specialized programming, so community-based organizations, community groups, NRZs, and other community partners will have access to the facilities during the operational hours. And teen programming. There will be specialized teen programming that is created for and by the teens that will be offered in a dedicated and safe space. So the Family and Community Center model is comprised of the following enhanced elements. So we are looking to expand the hours of operation for general use at Parker and Arroyo recreational centers, to expand the Metzner Recreation Center's operating hours, to extend weekend and recreational hours at all city recreational sites, to expand aquatic hours for community use, to open the reconstruction of the Blue Hills Recreation Center, to pilot the North Hartford Ascend Pipeline Navigator in the Parker Recreation Center to help determine the success and feasibility of replicating that model in the Arroyo Recreation Center as well, and to create safe zones for teen programming. This following slide shows a high-level sample overview of what this newly constituted family center model would look like. So we would essentially be doubling the hours of operation that the recreation centers are open now. We would be open beginning at 5 a.m. and being open until 10 p.m. at night for our Parker and Arroyo recreation centers. Thank you. Nope, that's good. Thank you. So currently, our staff composition of all of our employees looks as follows. So as I mentioned before, we have 71% that are City of Hartford residents. Non-City of Hartford is 29%. Our race and ethnicity breakdown is as follows. Our largest group of staff is comprised of being Hispanic at 44%. And then next is African American or Black at 22%, Caucasian or White at 12%, others 2%, and 20% prefer not to say. Our gender makeup is 39% female, 58% male, and 3% prefer not to say. And this concludes our budget presentation to you on this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Baldwin. So I have a question, and then I'm going to move to my council colleagues, and then I'll go at the end. But on the page that has Family, Children's, and Youth Recreation, where you have the 10 largest city in Connecticut,
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
do you know why West Hartford wasn't included? West Hartford makes the ninth
The
biggest
ninth-
city in the state of Connecticut, but we do have Bristol, which is 14, and Meriden, which is 13.
So I don't know why that wasn't included. That was part of our consultant's report, and I believe that that may have been a question that he was asked during the committee meeting as well. So I will have to go back and check to see as to why. And I think that I want to say, I'm not sure of this, so again, I will have to go back to check and see, but I think that West Hartford may be characterized as a town and not a city.
Okay,
But I will go back and check.
okay. Questions? Councilman Clark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Director Baldwin, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So glad to see you in this role.
Thank you.
How long have you now been with the city in totality?
So I've been with the city going on 9 years now.
Long time.
Long time.
So you've seen a whole lot,
We have.
especially in this particular department.
Yes.
Great presentation, very thorough.
Thank you.
Very, very thorough. I would say that you have a tremendous team with you, especially the two individuals sitting on the side of you. They've put some tireless work and effort into working for the city of Hartford in this department. I noticed Willie Ware is not on the list, so can you just explain what's going on at Willie Ware?
Yes, so on the list for the,
For the family and recreation?
the family expansion, yes.
Yes.
So Willie Ware is, so right now Willie Ware, and Troy, you may be able to speak a little bit more to it as well, operates in sometimes in a specialized capacity, as I mentioned, for COVID. So I think our thought process behind that was to keep the Willie Ware Center as is and focus on the larger recreation centers as part of the expansion. Is that correct in there?
Also, what we're going to do over at Willie Ware is to increase the staffing over there so that we can have longer hours. What we're trying to make sure is that when we do have any type of emergencies, there's not a certain type of activity that's happening that has to be consistent. So we're just keeping it open for that we have the leeway to make sure that everything's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, because I think at one point in time, Willie Ware was used as a, lack of a better word, shelter during COVID.
Correct. It
Okay.
still is,
It
yes.
still is, okay.
And when that happens, when we have to quickly transition to any type of emergency shelter situation, program has to stop immediately. So it can obviously be very disruptive to the programming.
That's understandable. Now with the, in the mayor's recommended budget, the additional amount of money that he indicated that was going to your department, specifically the Recreation Division, this new family and community center model reflects the increase in additional funds?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Is there, and I noticed too, because there's been this talk about access to some of the schools with recreational services, so can you just enlighten us as to how you were able to do these programs at some of the high schools? Which one are they?
At Sand.
Hartford High and Weaver and Sand?
Yes, sure. So that is through a long-standing partnership that we have with those schools. So we have traditionally been able to offer evening recreation programming in those two high schools as per our long-standing recreation. As you are probably aware, the operation of school facilities, including parks and gyms, are by state statute under the oversight of the Board of Education. So we rely on the partnerships that we have with the schools to be able to utilize those schools during the summertime for evening recreation.
Thank you. Is there any chance that this list of schools can be increased with, between your department and the Board of Ed?
Yes, I think that's absolutely something that we can explore and have a discussion with the schools, definitely.
Is there an MOU that is in place between the city and the Board of Ed, or how does that actually work?
Not that I'm aware of as an MOU, no. So it's right now based again on those relationships that we have, but I am happy, more than happy, to speak with my colleagues at HPS to see how we might be able to expand that out.
Please, I think that would be critical. I remember there was a time where it was in my first term, we allocated some additional funds for increase to recreation during the summertime because there was this growing complaint from the community that our rec centers were not accessible. Metzner is early learning center now, right?
It's also a recreation center, but yes, there is an early learning center in Metzner
Okay.
as well.
So would Metzner be included in this family care
Yes,
model?
it is. Yes, Metzner is included as well with expanded hours and programming.
Any talks with the administration about opening up another recreation center?
I'm sorry?
Any talks with your department and recreation about the administration about opening up another recreation center in the city?
Yes, so we are actually in the process of working with our colleagues in development services for the reopening of the Blue Hills Recreation Center.
That's perfect. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
The timetable, is that still the end of the year?
So our timetable is, since this is such a large initiative and we want to make sure that we get it right, we are planning, working closely with the administrative staff and our team here, as well as our budget analysts, to do this on a phased-in approach. So our goal is to initially have this roll out at the start of the fiscal year, and we will probably start with the rollout on the expansion of the hours at our two largest centers, Parker and Arroyo, and do a phased-in approach from there.
No, thank you. Now, from a budget, this will be my last question, from a budget perspective with this expanded role, what's the level of staffing that you need to make sure that all these facilities are fully
Yes.
staffed?
Yep. So I'll refer to my budget analyst here.
Hello, everybody. Corey Mills here, budget analyst, currently performance manager, doing multiple roles. So the plan that we provided to the mayor and that is included in this budget is an increase of 10 full-time positions. The majority of those are full-time lifeguards, and then an additional 12 part-time positions to be reorganized throughout all of the city rec centers. So I know you mentioned specifically Willie Ware was not in that presentation, but there is a planned increase for recreation counselors in Willie Ware as well.
Okay, perfect. I have some other questions, but I would not monopolize all the time. So, thank you, Madam President.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Majority Leader. Councilwoman Rossetti?
Thank you, Madam President. Hello,
Good evening.
I gotta mirror my colleagues, it's a really great presentation.
Thank you so much.
I think I want to say something first, though. Can I make a statement, Council President? So, as some people are aware, and I've talked directly to Director Baldwin, there is presently some talk of, moving Parks and Recreation. I want to say this publicly. I've said it to you and I've said it to others. This is not a reflection on anybody. I can't stress that enough. If anything, we think this could potentially be more robust for the people who are here. No one is going anywhere. It's kind of a shifting of chairs on a ship, but it's a process, and who knows what will happen. But that's not a reflection on your new position, and you and I have talked at length about this, others that are there that I know and respect, so I wanted to make sure I said that from myself, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to call me.
Thank you.
So, a couple of things. First of all, I know you put a lot of work into this. My one big thing, and it's been the last couple of years, and we've worked in a weird time, lifeguards. So I see we have some. Do we actually have them committed? And is that going to be enough? Because we're really more open this season than we have been.
Yes, exactly. And so a portion of the proposed, 1.4 million is actually going to create full-time lifeguard positions, which we don't have right now. But we have been working diligently, and so, since I've been in this role, we currently have our lifeguard position posted, as well as our recreation assistant position posted, which is earlier than we've done it in the past. Troy and his team are currently working with 16 potential students to help train them for them to become lifeguards. But in, response to, and I believe that we have over 90 lifeguards actively on staff right now. But to answer your question, no, it's not enough. So that's something that, we are constantly working on and thinking strategically outside of the box by some of those measures that I already mentioned. I'm working directly with the schools to identify youth that we can train through our department, right? That will then be committed to becoming lifeguards for our department. And so we've just been working as diligently as possible in light of the national crisis on lifeguard shortages.
And I don't want anybody to laugh, but I was a lifeguard, so okay. So I do know what goes into it. The consultants report, which was again a great report, and I know they touched on the part-time versus full-time. A lot of other departments have full-time. Have we thought about that? Have we thought of going more from part-time to full-time?
Yes, we definitely have. Again, that's written into part of the proposal, so we would be creating full-time lifeguard positions as well as full-time recreation assistant positions, which we don't currently have. So that was built into that proposal as we were thinking about it, because we think that we could more effectively provide programming over longer periods of hours if we had those as full-time positions.
And then not to, take up a lot of time, and I know my colleagues have questions. Some of these goals are really great, but how do we measure them? Are you going to be able to, at some point, when it says increase hours, days, and weeks, for an example, like what do we do now? What are we going to go to? Or another one that intrigues me is the multimedia technology. How are we going to do that? The timeline, the cost. Are we going to get some of that detail at some point, or are you going to have that detail?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the sample schedule that we provided in your packet, it shows what the expansion would look like, so we can definitely provide you where we are now, but essentially, for the two larger centers, Arroyo and Parker, it doubles the hours of operations from where we are now. But yes, our entire department is very data-centric and data-driven. We actually have a dedicated staff member specific to collecting data across the entire department, so that is definitely something that we will have on the forefront of any additional programming that we do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman LeBron?
Hello, Director and team.
Good evening.
My favorite, youth and families. My favorite department in the city. I want to congratulate you and the team on the budget increase. I think that's wonderful. I think any programming dedicated to youth and families and expanding that on our ability as a city to help more youth and families is critical and vital, and to the youth and families in our cities. The other thing I just want to acknowledge, for your confirmation, it was one of the, I know I wasn't here in person, but I wanted to just tell you face to face, it was one of the more touching stories that I've ever felt. Like I felt it through Zoom. And hearing your story and your background, I can't think of someone that is a better positioned and equipped to lead this department. So I wanted just to acknowledge that to you. I wasn't here that day, but
Thank you so much, Councilman.
it was probably like, yeah, it was really warm and
Thank you.
heartfelt. Recreation was a big part of my life as well. I'll get to my questions, Madam President. Recreation was because I could feel Council President looking at me. It was so vital for me growing up. I remember learning how to play bumper pool in the basement while the older guys from the community played basketball upstairs. And it was just such a center for the community. And I'm just looking forward to the ability for your department to be into our schools. So my first question is, you guys are now giving out diapers and formulas. With the formulas, is there a partnership with the Health and Human Services Department, and how does that work?
Yes, Charlene, would you like to reply to that?
Yeah, this initiative is with the diaper bank. It's our first initiative, and with this initiative, it's really geared to support staff.
Ooh,
What is that, Michael?
it wasn't me. I ain't break it. It wasn't me. The microphone went
Can you
out.
hold the microphone closer to you, or does it?
Hello? I'm still on. It's all right. These technical things happen. Yeah, it was my fault.
What do you mean? Oh, here.
Are we all set? Not yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, our diaper bank is an initiative we have really to support staff family childcare networks and center-based network. So we provide every month on a monthly basis. This is today was actually our 4th day where we just got a big freight to pass out. But it's just really to support families through center-based and staff family childcare. So, you know, it's a new initiative. So we've been working with Health and Human Services on a couple of initiatives. Health and Human Services works on WIC. We're looking to collaborate with them on another program. This is the CACFP program, to expand that. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does. I know, and speaking with folks in the community, like, there are very specific formula needs.
Yes.
And those can be hard to get for some of the members
Yes.
of our community. So I'm happy to see that, and I'm sure you guys are addressing that. With the JRB, the Juvenile Review Board, are you guys still servicing family with service needs or FWISN families?
Yes, we are, yes.
Okay. What is the total amount of kids percentage, or how does that, like, if you could give us the total amount of FWISNs out of everyone that you're seeing at the JRB?
Yeah, so I would have to go back and pull that data. We do have that data. The FWISN element of the referral was actually the last piece to get phased in by the state mandate, right? So initially it was, you know, the Juvenile Review Board youth, which it has been for years and years. And then that added to that was the truancy mandate. So youth that were truant, not chronically absent, but truant or habitually truant, would now be served through the Youth Service Bureau, which our department, our division of youth services is Hartford's Youth Service Bureau. So by state mandate now, any child that is truant from school no longer gets served through the court system like they were previously, but now they are served via the Youth Service Bureau. So the schools refer them to us. And then the last phase of that, as you mentioned, Councilman, is the family with service needs. So that piece of the initiative is much newer. Those referrals don't come from the schools.
Right.
Those referrals come directly from parents, caregivers, and from police. So we are very much on the forefront in the state on helping to disseminate that information to our communities so that parents know that they have the Youth Service Bureau as a resource.
Yeah.
So I can definitely get you.
Yeah, I
the
think
numbers on that.
I think it's critical. So segueing into I think there was the slide that said you work with 1,595 disengaged youth, and I'm thinking about the FWISN, and I'm thinking about the per pupil scholar dollar ratio. and the current complexities that we're having at Hartford Public Schools versus crack in our deficit, how closely do you work with the Board of Education to basically on the addresses, right? The biggest fight at the state is like, okay, where do these kids live? So that way we can get the reimbursement versus CREC getting the reimbursement and where those dollars are supposed to go. How closely do you work with the Board of Ed on that?
On the reimbursement piece for the...
No, identifying the residencies,
Oh.
right? So you're dealing with FISN, right? So you may be dealing with youth that are couch surfing or disengaged youth, so they're off the radar, right? And so it's hard to find their addresses.
Absolutely.
But the addresses are key for reimbursement on the state level. So I did some back on the envelope math, and it's $22,000 per student. And you're serving 1,595 students. So that's approximately $36 million that we can recover for the city of Hartford. How are you working with the Board of Ed on that?
So just to be clear, Councilman, that 1,595 students are youth that are served through the Youth Service Corps program, right? So specifically through that program. So in terms of young people that might be homeless or unstably housed or couch surfing. Actually just had a lovely conversation the other day in the hallway with Officer Barrett here. We are currently in the process of piloting a new initiative called the WISH initiative. So Wraparound Youth Supports for Homelessness, WISH, where we are working with some of our community partners in the space because, as you mentioned, it's very difficult not only to determine residency, but actually to find those young people. And I would like to say that that initiative, which we are just now in the process of piloting through our youth justice focus area of our Youth Services Department, was spearheaded because we have recently served 2 homeless youth that have come into our office directly requiring help. So we need to put something in place that is going to help us identify how many youth we have in Hartford that are in this position, right? Because we don't know. There has not been a system in place that has allowed us to be able to gather those numbers. So one of those young people that actually came into our office asking for help is now our youth homeless ambassador. So working with that young people to really develop the strategies on identifying their peers and other youth that might be in homeless or unstably housed positions that we might not have a good handle on.
Thank you. And so just the last one, Madam President, the Blue Hills Rec Center, when are we anticipating an opening?
So in our last conversations with Department of Development Services, we're anticipating a late fall opening, October or November. But again, that is will be more so determined by that department, not by us.
Okay.
Development Services. Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Hercules, I know that you're with us on the screen. Do you have any questions?
Through you, Madam President, no questions, just a quick comment to thank Director Baldwin and her team for their amazing work and a very thorough and comprehensive report. I really do like what you're proposing here for the expansion of our rec centers. I think that would be an amazing opportunity for all of us, particularly residents and those of us who work for the city to be able to have specific hours to work out and different things like that. So you have my full confidence. I think you're doing an amazing job. You know what you're doing. You know your stuff in and out. So I am really, really happy and excited to be working with you in this capacity. I would just say if there's anything that Councilman Mixham or myself can do for you with respect to volunteering or anything like that, just let us know, because this is, a department that's near and dear, and the services that you provide are near and dear to my heart. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. We look forward to working closely with you as well.
Councilman Hernandez?
Hello, Director Baldwin. Nice seeing you. And nice to see some of the faces that I've worked with over the years. It's good to see, put the faces to the names. Early learning. So I have a question. Do you have the percentage of what the early learning is of the budget if you were to include the grants as well? Not just for the general funding, because general funding is 2.9%. What would that percentage be if you were to include the entire department, including the grants?
So we can definitely get that number for you. Yes, we'll be able to. As you know, majority, all but one, of our early learning center team is grant funded.
Yeah, and that's where I was, that was my premise, just to understand the total percentage of, that we dedicate to early learning to our city. Because by looking at 2.9%, it's a little bit like kind of on the low end, and it kind of concerned me a little bit, and I couldn't find information about. I see the grants on the back of the book, I think it's on section 30 or 31. All the grants are there, but it doesn't say for what purpose or for what function it is. So I wanted to kind of get a little more information on how much we're really investing on our children, the early learning ones.
Yes, thank you. And so we currently get that $17 million grant from OEC, from the Office of Early Childhood. And that grant supports not only our own early learning centers in the city, so Metzner and Highland Park, but we also support our 18 school readiness providers throughout the city of Hartford as well, with that approximately $17 million for that grant.
Thank you. And I don't want to create any competition here, but Councilwoman Rossetti, I was also a lifeguard. So maybe we'll take advantage of one of those pool, hours, extended hours, and we'll see. So thank you very much, Director Baldwin.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Councilwoman Surgeon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Director. Congratulations on your position.
Thank you so much.
And want to make a fair disclosure. I've known the Director from she was a young lady, so I am want to make sure everybody realize that. So there is no special treatment here.
None whatsoever.
And it's nice seeing you. You've done a great job over the last several budget hearings with the early childhood. Nice to see you again. And thank you so very much for bringing your staff with you. This is really nice to see. Now, you said 14 staff here, 14 general fund staff? Are these all the 14 people?
No, they're not, actually.
I'm just joking. But it'd be nice to see all 14 general.
They're all amazing.
Okay, all right. And so in the presentation you mentioned there were about 36 grant funded. I would presume those are early childhood, most of it?
Yes, the majority of it, yes.
So most of your funding from the general funds goes to public recreation and admin?
Correct, yes. Yep, that's correct.
Okay. On your page 5 in your presentation, you mentioned about 110,000 meals served to the children. Was that during the just 1 year in this fiscal year?
That was to date for this fiscal year, actually. So that was as of March, and that is through our CACFP program, so our Child and Adult Care Food Program, through the Early Learning Centers.
Okay, so this is through early learning.
Yes.
Okay. I do know you have a summer program that you do provide meals.
Yes, through our recreation department.
Okay.
Division.
And how was the initiative for the Bloomberg initiative with the family child care, the Hartford Talks? Really want to commend you on that, or commend the department on that.
Yes.
I've heard some really good feedback on that initiatives.
Yes, thank you so much. We are very excited about the Hartford Talks. Actually, Magdalene Garcia, Magdalene, raise your hand. She runs our Hartford Talks program. It's an incredible program that promotes literacy amongst the family. So we give tools to our families, our caregivers, to do early learning and early literacy techniques with our youngest children. So the program is designed to be both in the center, so center-based, but also designed to be at home for parents that might not have their children in the center.
Well, she's been to the NRZ and talking about the initiative. So I thank you for reaching out to the different community groups throughout the city and informing them of it. So at least we could pass on to the parents that we know. So that was really good of your department to actually come out and talk to us.
Thank you. We're going to be looking to do much more of that.
Oh, well, I'm up to that. That's great. You said there is on your page, I better start reading again. I think it's on page 8 of the your presentation. It talked about Sands Elementary School, September, October, you do a recreation program there?
Correct.
And is it all 5 days? How long is that?
So 5 days a week during the after-school hours.
Right. It's 5 days a week after school from 4 to 8, Monday through Friday.
So what kind of recreational do you do? What kind of activities do you do there?
Mainly what we do is we have either they learn volleyball. We have different types of activities. We have a schedule plan for each of our centers, and what the kids are interested in. That's what we mostly provide during that time period.
So about approximately, don't know, but how many kids do you guys interact?
We normally average over there. We were averaging over 60 kids a day.
I know kids are sort of territorial, so going all the way down to Parker Memorial is.
Yes.
So that is really nice that you were able to offer kids this program in the Clay Arsenal area. I have to also commend you for thinking outside the box and developing your own lifeguards within the city of Hartford. I have been on our HR department to start doing something like that. So therefore, when we develop our own lifeguards, we have those people, because I know it's very critical, and also the competition with the other towns are very difficult.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And they do last, so, my own son was trained as a lifeguard here. And so he is a lifeguard, but actually he is in his freshman year of college, and he was looking for a job, and his school, University of Maine, told them they have a lifeguard shortage, and he said, I'm a lifeguard. I was trained by the city of Hartford. So he works as a lifeguard up at school, and he's eagerly awaiting to come home to start lifeguarding again during the summer.
Awesome. How much do we pay them?
So we actually just recently increased, so the other portion of this 1.3 million is to bring the very small piece is to bring the lifeguards up in pay. So we actually recently, this fiscal year, increased the salary. So the starting pay for our lifeguards is now at $15 an hour, and if they are successful after 2 months, that goes up to $16.25. And so that was an increase that was implemented this fiscal year, and that's included as about the remaining 0.4% of that 1.3 million.
And is that pretty competitive?
Is that a competitive rate? At this point, yes. I mean, we'd like to, increase it even more, but
So
at
let
this
me
point,
ask you this way.
It's comparable.
The suburban towns, what are they paying their lifeguards, approximately?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The suburban towns, West Hartford, Bloomfield, what are they paying their lifeguards?
Well, we're beholden to the unions as well as HR, so we're doing pretty well with the changes. Even with the rec assistant is going to be this year, that they'll be getting an increase. So with the suburban towns, they're basically at $18 to $20 an hour.
So we train our lifeguards, do we lose them to the other town for a couple extra dollars?
Probably, yes. So I would have to do an analysis on how many we end up losing. She asked if we lose them to other towns. I would say, transparently, we probably do, yes.
So I consider Hartford a feeder city for the police and everybody else. So now we're a feeder city for the lifeguards too?
No, there's a commitment that they have to do with us. They have to stay, if we pay for them to get their lifeguard certification, they have to stay with us for a year. We have to stay on for a year with us.
So is that legally they signed?
We went through Corporation Council for that, so we got
Okay,
help on
so after training them, they work with the city of Hartford, they're
that. Depending on
committed.
HR,
to work with the city for a year.
yeah.
After that year is over, they can leave and go work for another town.
But what happens mostly is that they work for us and work for someone else as well, so.
They work for us in another town as well.
Right. Or work for the YMCA or Boys and Girls Club, something like that.
Okay. So Director,
Thank you.
if we were to ask you, additional funds is needed to get this pay scale up to 18 to 20, could you give us an idea? I don't mean now.
Yes,
before the
sure.
budget process is over?
Yes, definitely. We can do the analysis on that and provide it to you.
I'm almost finished, Madam Chair. You mentioned on page 9,
I'm sorry, I just want to mention that that is something that we'd have to speak about with HR, so that would be an HR question, but I can definitely go back and have the conversation with them. Since
all right.
they're unionized positions.
So the lifeguards are unionized? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's discuss that a little bit further. You can educate me a little bit further how we could do something like this.
Yes, so part of the proposal is to make them full-time, which gives them more of a commitment to stay with the city of Hartford if they are full-time employees and could receive benefits and such.
But do we have, you said we have, geez, where's my notes on how many lifeguards? We have, do we have, with, I don't remember how many lifeguards you said we have in,
Yeah, currently about a little over 90.
okay. So, you said, so would there be, if you had about 15 lifeguards, are there enough work to have 15 full-time? Like, when you say full-time, are we talking about during the summer, all year?
All year.
All year?
Yes,
And so we have indoor pools
we do.
along with the outdoor pools.
Correct.
So if you were to ever have 15 full-time lifeguards, there is enough places for them to work?
Yes, there are, definitely. Each pool requires, due to regulations, requires at least 4 lifeguards per shift. They have to rotate after every 15 minutes or so per regulation.
Just on my own notes, what union is the lifeguards in?
1716.
Thank you. I'm almost finished, Madam Chair. ARP funds, I remember seeing somewhere in your presentation,
Yes.
it talked about, I gotta find it, how many monies were allocated to the ARP funds?
Yes,
Page 11.
yes.
And that funded 96 youth serving program. Is that in the city or outside the city?
So those are youth serving programs that serve Hartford youth. So the requirement is that they have to serve Hartford youth with those dollars.
Okay. And how do you confirm these are all youth Hartford youth? And then number 2, part of the same question is, if the city funded $3.4 million to ARP funds, why wouldn't half of those funds be put into the rec division and fund the programs from the rec division instead of outside service provider? Is there something in the rec divisions that wasn't able to do these programs?
No, so that when the ARPA dollars came in, so they were designated to the youth services division at that time. And so the purpose of them was to give it back out to the community. So, I was not in this role at that time, but that was what was determined as the purpose of those funds, was to make sure that our community providers had the funding that they need to help support our young people to get them back re-engaged following the pandemic or during the pandemic. And I'm sorry, I forgot your first question.
I think that kind of summarized where I was going with it, because
Oh, the verification, I'm sorry. So
Yeah,
our
verification.
Yes, our providers are required, they have actually very strict data requirements. They actually sign off on a data sharing agreement with one of our partners, the Hartford Data Collaborative, where they have to submit the demographic information, including residency information, of the youth that they're serving to the Data Collaborative. So we have data requirements in order to receive that.
Do you do any auditing?
So we do site visits for our providers, where we will sample and check records. So our youth engagement team goes out to the physical location of the providers and does site visits on them.
Thank you. I'm going to stop because I want to give my other colleagues an opportunity to ask questions. So if there's any time left over, Madam Chair, if there's any time left over, I've got a couple of questions, but I'll give my other colleagues an opportunity to ask their questions.
How many more questions do you have, Councilwoman?
I've got about quite a few more, but I give my colleagues, I give
All
my
right.
respect to my colleagues so that they'll get their turn also.
Okay, thank you. So Director Baldwin, as we tell every department, if there's any council members that have questions for you, when you do reply, please include the entire council body with your response. Councilman Gale?
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. And
evening.
let me just say, I want to second everything that Councilwoman Rossetti said. Some of you may know that council's looking very hard at, or at least some members of council are looking very hard at the recreation budget, among other things. But I certainly want to make it clear, as Councilwoman Rossetti made it clear, that this is not aimed at any particular person. This is aimed at making the city of Hartford better and work for everybody. And I want to compliment your department because for the tremendous ability over the years that the department has had to get grant funding. Note in our budget book that while you've got 14 positions funded through the general budget, you've got 42 positions that will be funded next year for grant funding. So 3 times as many positions in your department are going to be funded through grant funding. So, congratulations to you for obtaining all that funding. I'm a little confused about the dollars, though. I note in our book we have the grants section that sets out and indicates that the dollar amount of grants for next fiscal year for your department is about $12.3 million. And the figures that you've provided on page 9 are obviously higher than that. So are those figures multi-year grant numbers? Is that what we're looking at on page 9?
Yes, some of them are multi-year grant numbers, and grants are sort of always this sort of moving target, right? So we're constantly seeking grants and receiving grants. Some of them are multi-year, as you stated. Some are single year. So, as of the time of submission of this budget document that you received, that what we have here presented is accurate at that time, which might be slightly different from what you see in the budget book, which was submitted a few months prior.
Yeah, so the budget book says 12.2 million in grant funding. That's a fairly accurate figure, you believe?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. And looking at those grants, I also note that, and I could be wrong about this, but none of those grants seem to be recreation grants. Am I correct that those grants, for the most part, are youth services, early childhood development, and those types of matters?
Yes, so as stated early in our presentation, the 3 divisions are very interdependent and interreliant on one another. So for example, the ARPA funding through the Unity grants that Councilwoman Surgeon mentioned earlier, a good portion of those go to fund recreation programs of our community service providers. However, those fundings are designated through our youth services division. So there are, several examples like that where one division supports the other.
The ARPA funds that you mentioned, they're not included in this grant total that's in our budget book, are they?
Probably not. I would have to go back and check with our budget analyst on that. Correct.
Okay, yeah, I don't see, there's no line, let me say it this way, there's no line item in the budget book for ARPA funding.
Right, that may very well be the case.
And it's got a real sunset to it as well, unfortunately. We all wish it wouldn't.
Yes, and also the ARPA funding isn't, you might not see it in my department's budget because it was designated citywide. So the ARPA funding comes to the city as a whole, and then the administration determines which departments get which amount of funding.
So kind of in keeping with some of the things you've said about the interconnection of the departments, going back to one of your earlier pages, where you, or maybe it was a later page, where you, let's see, page 12, if we could pull that up. So this sets out, as I understand it, some of the core program areas of the department. And I'm wondering, with respect to these various programs that are listed here, which of these are actively supervised by recreation at present?
So some of the programs here, Councilman, occur in multiple divisions of our department. So, for example, youth programs, right? So the recreation team will run youth-specific programs, but the youth services division also supports youth programs. So, you know, I would have to go through and decipher out specifically, you know, if you want to know what's solely run by recreation, or if you want to know what's run by recreation that might also be supported by the other divisions as well.
All right, well, fair enough. Perhaps I didn't understand the interconnection between them. So just as a for instance, would that be true of the aquatics program, that's got, the aquatics program is not only supervised by recreation, but also supervised by other parts of the other divisions?
No, the aquatics program is specifically supervised through the recreation division.
Is there any others that are just supervised by recreation in this list?
From this list, the day camp program. However, so this is actually a good example, right? So as part of our day camp program, as we mentioned as one of the highlights in the budget presentation, is the Leaders in Training program, right? So the Leaders in Training is a camp counselor training program for youth. And as part of that program, the youth receive a stipend. The stipend is provided through the Youth Services Division. This is just another way that we work interdependently on one another. So through our Youth Services Bureau grant in the Youth Services Division, the stipends are provided to the leaders in training that are having that program through the Recreation Division.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have no other questions.
Hi, I just have one last question before we end this. And this is something that you can send me an email back, but it's on early learning. So when I look at page 20-3, for early learning, I see here that, of course, the Division for Early Learning provides day-to-day leadership and learning and care for Hartford's children. It says here, we use the best practices data and tools to make sure that every Hartford child is ready for kindergarten. Now, we have 3 sites, right, for the early childhood learning?
We currently have 2.
Okay.
Yes.
Did we have 3
We
before?
had 3, yes.
Which were the 3?
The Asylum Hill branch, which closed, that was at the Asylum Hill Church, that closed 2 years ago? 2 years ago. And we have Metzner Early Learning Center and Highland Park Early Learning Center.
Okay, so then when I look at page 20-4, and I see percentage of preschool children entering kindergarten with age-appropriate language and literacy skills for projected 2023, it's 40%. So I'm just trying to understand the 40%. So I don't want to, do I want to say that based on this percentage, our kids that are entering the kindergarten are not where they're supposed to be at their literacy skills? Page 20-4?
No, it's the data we're collecting, so. In FY22, data wasn't collected due to COVID. A lot of the programs were opening and closing, so the data that we collected, that reflects that 40%. But really, in our early learning community, this is not a projection of Metzner and Highland specifically. This is looking at City of Hartford citywide. So we're looking at 18 early learning sites, and we're looking at staff, family, child care networks. And we're also looking at kith and kin. So we're looking at data collection, and we're looking at this number. After COVID, we expanded our early learning community. So right now, our focus is just not center-based. It's also staff, family, child care, and kith and kin. So these numbers are going to change dramatically, but we weren't able to capture the data that we needed in order to reflect. So we're working with Hartford Public Schools and our working groups to make sure that community-wide we can expand our early learning community.
So I imagine that you get the data of at what level is a child who gets to kindergarten in the city of Hartford. Could you guys get that and provide it to us?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, and that concludes my questions. I want to thank everyone who attended. Oh, Councilwoman Shirley Sturgeon, go ahead.
A couple more questions. And how much of our grants funds is kept within the city and is outsourced to other recreational programs?
Yes, so I, would have to go and do the analysis on that, but a vast majority of our grant dollars go out to the community.
Okay. So you've been here for 9 years, and I have been working with the city for quite a few years. And over the last several decades, I think this is the most funds I've ever seen placed in the recreation division. And so if we keep outsourcing these grant funds, how do we expect to develop our recreation programs? Because one of the issues which I see that has led to some issues and wanting the Rec and Parks division to be a separate division is because of lack of funding and left by the city. So as you transition to more programs, how do you then work with these providers who are receiving all these grants, and how do you keep these grants back and increase your rec department?
Right. Yes, so I think that would be like the very argument for having a in-depth analysis of shifting to a separate Parks and Rec department, right? Because our community providers that currently receive the vast majority of our grant funding would be very much impacted by that, right? Without doing sort of like the proper in-depth analysis on that. Since majority of our grant funding now does go out to the community-based providers, many of whom are providing recreation-based services. So that's, yes, to your exact point, that's definitely something that should be carefully considered and thought through as part of the process.
So are you going to be doing an in-depth review and possibly recommendation?
So in regards to the proposal that we've set forward for the 1.3 million, that was part of our analysis there. So that 1.3 million allows for the expansion of the recreation programming to happen, within the department with the expanded hours and expanded programming. If you're asking about the ordinance that has been placed forward, is that what you're referring to?
Well, that's one.
Okay.
That's part of it. But I'm trying to get in the number of years I've been actively involved in the city, I've never seen so much funding gone into Record Division. Mm-hmm. Okay? You've been here for 9 years.
Yes.
All right? And so over the last several decades, we have outsourced our recreation.
Right.
Okay? And now we're trying to bring that back in-house.
Exactly.
Okay? So I expect some kind of analysis on how it's going to affect your service providers out there who are doing this.
Yes.
Then, in conjunction with that, I commend you on the recommendation on hiring of new staff, okay? But if my days been involved, we certainly had double the staffing in the recreation division, and working with the school system, that wasn't an issue back in the early, 2000. So my question to you is maybe this is something after the budget process is finished, is providing a detailed or in-depth review of how you would do so, okay? And how the effect would be on the providers.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And now we have a few more, I think we've got one more year ARP funding we have to do.
Correct. The dollars have to be committed by 2024.
Okay, so in my next, maybe you can give me back some information also. So if you have another year of funding for ARP, how much of that can be retained in-house at the Recreation Division? And instead of outsourcing it, if it's nothing been committed as yet, why could it be not committed to the Recreation Division?
Yeah, so that's something that we can definitely look into when we're talking about our entire pot of ARPA. Obviously, the ARPA dollars have helped to support and supplement our department, across the way. Many of those dollars have already been committed. So, for example, this last round of Unity grants the RFP has already gone out and closed. We're in the process now of doing the review for the Unity grants to determine which providers will get the funding. So that particular designated pot of funding has already been committed. So I'm not sure how much flexibility there is at this point, since we are now entering FY22, and that's when the commitment of the ARPA fundings has to be completed by. But I am happy to look into it.
Well, I mean, should there any be additional funds from the ARPA funds? You know, I mean, I commend you and I commend your proposal, and I commend the mayor and the administration for actually putting this 1.2 million. But I think of several more monies are needed, and so if some of the ARPA funds can be placed back in the rec division, if you would let us know, that'd be great.
Thank you. Yes.
And back to Councilman Gale, when we were looking at this this graph, and the number, you said Hartford has 12761. Is that number of people, what's?
Residents. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Residents, yes.
Residents.
Mm-hmm. Population.
And I remember when you did the presentation of the Park and Rec Division, the young man, I think it's from Bristol, I think he was from.
Yes.
And how much staff did he say for a town of 60,000? Do you remember offhand how much staff did he say he
I have
had?
his report here. If you give me a few minutes, I'll try to comb through his report and see if I can find it on the spot. If
I
not, I'll get
remember
back to you.
reading it, and as you get age, you don't remember, you don't retain all the information.
So in his report, Dr. Madero stated that if you calculate for a community the size of Hartford at 120,000, you would be looking at 108 FTEs.
Yeah. So we're just beginning, we're not even halfway there.
Right.
So we're just beginning. So, I believe the subsidy with the outside providers maybe equal that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we bring all that funds back in, I think we'll probably end up, we're 2 times as large as Bristol.
Right.
And we're spending less money in the city of Hartford.
Yes, so according to his report, in the city of Bristol, they have a population size of 60,000 plus. They have 14 full-time rec staff.
And so we just hired, you said you're going to be hiring 10 full-time, but it seems that most of your employees are part-time.
Yes, they are. The vast majority of them, about 150 of them, are part-time.
So if you can let us know, if you were to turn or increase more from your part-time staff to your full-time staff, if you just let us know what that cost would be. And then number 2, your retention of part-time staff.
Mm-hmm.
How long does people really work for the city, or do they move on?
Yes.
If you can get that back to us, that'd be
Sure,
great.
yes.
Great. Thank you so very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, everyone.
Madam Chair, I'm finished. Oh.
Councilman Gale?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I just wanted to make a quick clarification because it was just raised. I didn't know that we would necessarily get into a discussion this evening about the proposed ordinance for a new Parks and Rec division, but since it has come up a couple of times, I just want to state it for everyone's benefit clearly that the ordinance that's been presented does not call for changing any of the existing programs. It does not call for bringing in-house any programs that are currently outsourced. It does something, it's very simple what it does. The ordinance says the Office of Recreation as it currently exists goes under a new department head. The Office of Parks Maintenance as it currently exists goes under a new department head. But every other interconnection between all those departments stays the same. The ordinance does not discuss any changes to anything else. Now, all of this is going to be discussed in much more detail when we get to the committee hearing, which I believe is the second Wednesday of May. Second Wednesday? Second, yes. All of this is going to get discussed in much more detail, and anything can change. But just so there was some clarity tonight, what's been introduced does just what I said. Takes Office of Recreation, Parks Maintenance divisions, those exact divisions as they currently exist, puts them under a new director, and leaves everything else exactly the same. Thank you.
Councilman Clark?
I know we have a public hearing coming up to talk about the proposed ordinance. However, since this is a topic of discussion now, and with the great work that your team has been doing also too with the Recreation Division Director Troy Stewart, you can choose to answer this question or defer to the administration. However, I just would like to know with this proposal and with the contractual agreements that are already with your department regarding youth services and also to recreation, as you said, they're intertwined. Does that, will that actually affect some of the agreements with your service organizations that are performing, helping your recreation division to perform work in the city?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes the department presentation. I want to thank everyone again. Director Baldwin, thank you so much. Great job. And have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, so tomorrow we will be hearing from Capital Improvements, Metro Hartford Innovations, also known as MHIS and Development Services. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. And we will now take a 5-minute break before we start our public hearing segment. Thank you.